honestly. I really appreciate your time.
No, no, not a problem at all. Thank you for reaching out. I'm very excited to do this.
Oh, me too, honestly. I've seen a lot about you on the Muscular Dystrophy UK page, as
Yeah,
well as like you'd be the perfect guy to get on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. And is everything okay, by the way, sound wise? Is it all coming through okay?
Yep,
There's no
perfect.
background noise or anything?
Nope, not at all. 10 out of 10.
Amazing. Fantastic. Okay, perfect. But yeah, so I think there's been quite a few bits recently and did sort of a big event in November last year. So yeah,
Wow.
I think they've been pasting my face everywhere, which is very kind of them.
Yeah, definitely. You're like the poster boy now. Committed
Yeah.
to everything.
Yeah, they always seem to find a different photo of me from somewhere. I think they've probably got a whole folder lined up, I think.
Don't knock it, I tell you. You're flying the flag for everybody. You're doing amazing.
Brilliant, thank you, thank you. And whereabouts are you based?
So I'm in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Where are you based?
I literally a few days ago moved into London, so right in
Wow.
the centre of London. So in the middle of it all.
Are you enjoying it? It's quite
Yeah,
busy.
it's good. It's very busy, yeah, but it's good. I've lived in London I was renting for about a year and a half, and then decided to move in fully. So yeah, no, it is good. It is good.
How do you find it from like an accessibility side of things?
It's a good question.
Hmm.
The thing is, it's pretty good. I
Hmm.
mean, when it came to renting and looking for a place, I needed somewhere that was either on the ground floor or with a lift because, I can go up a flight or two of stairs, but doing that every day and say you've got a food shop or
Oh,
something, it's just it wouldn't work. So, but it's okay. It's just when you get to the old buildings, the main thing that I find is restaurants and
yeah.
bars and everything. Everything, because London's so old, everything is underground, and then the toilets are either underground or upper floor. So
Yeah.
wherever I'm going, it's stairs. That's the killer, really, is the
Hmm.
stairs in restaurants.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I love going out for food, but it's so hard to like try new places because, as you say,
Yeah,
it's either no parking and it's a big walk, or it's upstairs, or you'll get in, everything will look fine, and then you'll find out the toilets are up two flights of stairs, and it's like,
yeah,
oh no, it's
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
working.
No, exactly. That's exactly it. So it's just. You've either got to plan your toilet breaks very carefully, or you just go to sort of the regular places where you know. But luckily I can still do stairs, so it's not a deal breaker. But
No,
it's never fun when you have
no,
to do that. So
no. So I'll start with a little introduction, a bit about the podcast and a bit about why I'm
yeah,
doing it. So I have got limb-girdle muscular dystrophy type 1B, and it affects pretty much all of the muscles in my body, and so my mobility, my stomach, bladder, heart, everything. And from a young age, I had a lot of questions about what life was gonna look like. Was I gonna be able to do what I wanted to do? Was I gonna be able to live on my own, uni, all that stuff? And luckily, I was able to do it, as we've all found out. We find our own ways, but I really wanted to do this podcast to try and help other people that are starting on their journey, and even people that are further in their journey and just want to know that they're not alone. Maybe they have some questions and stuff. So that's really the basis for the podcast and why I've got you on. Because I'd like to obviously hear your experience, learn about your condition,
yeah,
and yeah, just see what we can do really. So do you want
excellent.
to tell me a bit about yourself?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. So my name is Jed Thirkettle. I have muscular dystrophy, and I was diagnosed at 8 years old with auric congenital muscular dystrophy, which
Well,
is a bit of a mouthful. But I think it's collagen 6A1. I know there's A1, 2, and 3. I think I'm COL 6A1. But but I might need to correct that. But yeah, I was diagnosed at 8 years old, and when I was diagnosed, I was told I'd be in a wheelchair by the age of 12. I'd be on a ventilator by 14 years old, and they said to my parents I'd be lucky to make it past 20, essentially.
Hmm.
So I mean, I'm very fortunate, touch wood. I'm actually still very mobile, healthy, able to get around independently. I turned 25 this year, so very much gone against the odds. But as we know with muscular dystrophy, there is such a wide spectrum of different conditions, and even people with the same condition who have auric do follow that pattern more closely. But then there's people like myself, these sort of intermediates who don't follow that pattern. So yeah, it's strange to sort of take it each day as you come. But so growing up, I was always a lot slower and weaker than everyone, essentially. You know, when you're doing sports days or kicking football about, just weaker and slower than everyone else. And then when you start to grow, especially all of the guys start to grow a bit, I just wasn't getting any stronger and wasn't catching up like the doctors would say. And it was 8 years old, and they said, yeah, he'll catch up by the age of 8, that my parents went and said, right, it's not caught up. We want a muscle biopsy done. And that's sort of what started this whole journey as such, or the understanding that actually got a diagnosis and you're living with a lifelong muscle wasting condition.
Wow. Honestly, I mean, it sounds, you are doing amazing. Um,
Yeah.
I can definitely relate to some of those experiences, even just at the age of 8, because that was really when I started my journey. Mine was kind of slightly different in the sense that I was a toe walker from the age of
Okay.
4 and was like really high on point. And like you said, at sports days and PE, you could kind of just see that like I wasn't as like physical as everyone else.
Yeah.
So I got referred to an orthopedic doctor, and he said, "Oh, we'll just send her for like a full body MRI just to see what's going on." And they found that I had a cyst on the left side of my brain. It looked like I only had half a brain, and they thought that could that be what was kind of contributing to it. So when they drained that, they took a muscle biopsy, but they found out that actually no, that was just a complete coincidence.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was when, like you, they said, oh, it is a muscle wasting condition of some
Yeah.
kind. But as you know, it takes many years to actually get a name, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just because people develop and grow at different rates, you know, you hear it loads with, let's say, speech and verbal sort of things when kids are growing up. Everyone happens at different rates. So you do just wait. And I think maybe even with ladies and girls, it's a lot harder because guys go through that sort of puberty and then pretty much becomes very clear who's getting stronger and who's not. I suppose you really know at that point. So I think 8 was when guys sort of in my year started having that first growth spurt. And whilst I grew, I just wasn't filling out as much as everyone else. And so it's probably, if anything, easier to recognize that, okay, there is something. But I know across females and males, there's differences as well with that, as there are with loads of conditions.
Definitely. No, I agree. Um, from like, out of curiosity, from a
Yeah.
physio perspective, what type of things do you find helpful, and what have you maybe not found very helpful?
Yeah, so I know when I was growing up, they said to do physiotherapy, they being the doctors. So before I could walk, my parents were doing it with me or for me or
Mm,
all of that. And then I could do it myself. But again, they're always there to help and do it with me. I know it's hard because the way the system works is I think you get prescribed almost 6 free sessions
mm,
or 10 free sessions, and then that's it. You're technically you're cured by that point as if it's an injury, but it's not. It's lifelong. So I think that's all been very important growing up. And then I know around 12, I think I was 12 and I just got fed up of doing physiotherapy, all these sort of movements, and stopped for a couple of years whilst I was going through another growth spurt, I think, sort of hitting puberty, and really stopped. I didn't want to do it. But then at 14, when everyone was going and doing sports lessons at school, I was able to go to the gym. The school had a small gym. And so I did that and worked with one of the PTs there for a bit. And luckily fell in love with the gym. The gym, I know is a very broad term, but essentially started doing a bit more weightlifting sort of style of exercises. Now, not very heavy at all, obviously, but more weightlifting stuff, a little bit of cardio, more that generic exercise routine that you see loads of people all around the world doing. And I really enjoyed it. And I think that's the main thing for me. And what I say to everyone else is that what you can do or what your body can take is very personal. But
Mm,
ultimately, it needs to be some exercise that you enjoy or some health and fitness routine that you enjoy because you just won't keep up with it. Physio I did for years and years, but eventually it just came to a halt. Whereas this is something I love and I can do 5, 6 times a week, every single week, and will probably do that for the rest of my life. So, but in terms of other things, I mean, I did hydrotherapy for a brief stint
mhm.
because that's meant to be really good with sort of taking the weight within the water while still providing resistance. So I know that was quite good. But again, they give you a few sessions and then you're on your own to pay for it
Yeah.
all. Um, Stretching, as you'll know, I think you said being a toe walker,
Yeah.
stretching is such a big thing, isn't it? Not getting contractions. So I was always just stretching or having one of my parents stretch me out and my legs and everything to try and stay mobile. So it's really, I've tried all sorts over the years, but since 14 onwards, I really just fell in love with weightlifting. It's by no means like a cure or anything like that, obviously. But what I found personally is that it has helped me stay mobile and sort of stave off that progression of the muscle wasting. Obviously, everyone is very different, and what works for me may not work for someone else. I know for years I was actually going to the doctors and they were saying, look, you need to stop lifting weights because when you're doing that, you're essentially creating micro tears and breaking down the muscle, which your body's trying to do anyway. So they
Mm,
said, look, stop. You're going to make it worse. You're going to make it worse. But it didn't. It sort of worked for me. And so I kept going. And then I think maybe after 6, 7 years, they finally turned around and went, oh, tell us a bit more about this then. So what are you actually doing? What's this? But I think my view, and I want to ask, see what your view is, but is really there's no cure for us as of yet. And there's no, well, for my particular condition, I know there's no treatment anyway. For me, it's very much been, well, there's almost a certainty of muscle wasting. I
mm,
know that's going to happen. So let me just trial and error different things in the meantime, because I know what will happen if I do nothing. So I may as well try other things, whether that's with your nutrition, supplements, with fitness, exercise, sleep, whatever that is. There's a certainty if you don't do anything. So I just trial and error everything else and see what works for me. But I don't know what your experience of that sort of thing is in physio and exercise. How have you found that?
Yeah, so quite similar to you in some respects. From quite a young age, obviously with the toe walking, because I was a toe walker up until I was about 15, and then I had my tendons lengthened. Um,
Okay.
and so I did a lot of the basic NHS physio, like small little clusters in primary. But then when I went through like my growth spurt and kind of was quite unstable with my health and mobility, a lot of that kind of stopped for a bit because they were like, there's too much going on. Let's just get you to a better point and then we'll reassess. But then I started hydrotherapy and did that for a few years and found that really amazing for like flexibility, just general stretching, and a lot of my core strength. I don't know about you, but that's sometimes where I'm weakest in my core and holding myself up. So that has been a really big help. I also do. It's called an anti-gravity treadmill. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, do you
I've
know?
heard of it. I've not tried this. I really want to.
You have to you might have to come up this way. There's one about an hour from me, and
Yeah.
go like twice a month, and it's amazing. It's quite hard work, I won't
Yeah.
lie, but it straps you in, and you can pick and choose how much of your body weight you hold, and you can either practice going up an incline, just practice your general gait, or just focus on muscle building, and that has been a bit of a godsend, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Okay.
And what else? I think that's a lot of the main bulk, but kind of like you, I have accepted that at least for now, and maybe not in my lifetime, there isn't going to be a cure or any big treatment. And my dad has always been like, come on, let's just try and see what there is. You've got to be proactive with it. And that really rubbed off on me. And I'm really glad that it did, because as you say, everybody's different and it might not work for everybody. But if I'd have just not never done anything, kind of just sat back and let it happen, I definitely wouldn't be walking still. I wouldn't be anywhere near as mobile as I am, or as
Yeah.
comfortable. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think my parents, where I got diagnosed so late, has almost been, again, you never know with these things, but I think it helped because when I'd say that I was tired, my parents would just say, "Oh, when you're 6 or 7, they'd say, 'I'll get on with it. Stop being lazy. You're not tired.'" Or I'd ask them to carry me, and they'd say, "No, you're fine. Just keep going." And all of those are little bits of exercise, essentially, and little bits of just building that strength when you're walking rather than being carried everywhere. So I think in that sense, I'm a strong believer that everything happens for a reason. And again, I think a late diagnosis maybe is another factor as to why I'm where I am now. But it's such a hard, I'm sure we'll get onto it, but it's such a hard one for parents to navigate, especially as you get diagnoses earlier and earlier on as well, because it's a
Mhm.
natural instinct to want to help your child, let alone whether they're dealing with something. So, but I think for me, that's always been something that I say has been a massive plus, is that you learn how to, push through a little bit when you're tired, or you fall over, you learn how to get yourself up rather than someone coming to pick you up. It's all of those sort of things. But yeah, I mean, it's something they've probably had to navigate as well without me even realizing it.
Well, funnily enough, we can divert to that question
Yeah,
a bit now. I am going to do an episode in a few weeks with my pet to kind of
yeah.
ask them about it. But I mean, from your pet, obviously, I know you can't speak for them, but I'm sure, like me, you probably picked up bits and bobs from
Yeah.
over the years. I mean, how do you think, it affected them?
Yeah, that's the thing, because a lot of people ask me, naturally, they said, "Well, how did you react when you were diagnosed?" And to be honest, I think I was 8 years old. I was in the corner of the room playing with like the bricks and the toys that they've got in the hospital. So I didn't react in any way because I wasn't even present for it, I don't think. So it is really my parents that have had to deal with the news, and I think ignorance is bliss when you're younger, because they tell you you've got something, but you don't suddenly have a day where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I have this now." Because you've
Yeah.
had it for 8 years, you've had it all along. Your life doesn't suddenly get any harder or easier with the diagnosis. Now, I know with other conditions it probably does when you've been diagnosed and you know what you're up against. But I'm not being funny, when it's lifelong, that's, well,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Oh, it's got a name, fantastic. Well, it's business as usual tomorrow. So I think it's really them that had to deal with that. Now, Lord knows how they did that, because I know for your parents, going from hearing that your child is healthy, normal in inverted commas, what you'd expect from a growing child, and that they're just developing a bit slowly, to then be told that they've got a lifelong muscle wasting condition. And at the time, being told their child's not going to make it past 20,
Mm-hmm.
that's devastating news, isn't it? And
Is.
to have to tell the family to go through that. And then again, we've come a long way, but you look online and you see sort of the stories from everyone. It's obviously, with everything, it's always worst case scenario.
Is.
So it's really tough for them to have to deal with. So I think the fact that they didn't spiral, or they didn't sort of get defeated by that news or something rubbed off on me or stopped me from going in that direction. So I've just always had that support there before, after diagnosis, throughout. So it's not really been overly difficult. It's not something I've had to come to terms with. I think, as you grow older, the challenges change, and there
Yeah.
does hit a point where you do have to come to terms with things on your own, as opposed to your parents, because they've done what they can do, and you're an adult now. But yeah, no, I think really just there. I know my mum's positivity would have worn off on me, rubbed off, sorry, on me, and then dad's just very much get on, do
Yeah.
things, do whatever you're doing, as long as you're trying,
Mhm.
that's the main thing, which is massive because when you're working out with muscular dystrophy, or when I'm working out, I'm never going to be lifting the heaviest. I'm never going to be the best physically in any shape or form, whether that's aesthetics and looks, whether that's strength, speed. I'm never going to be the best at that. But, dad was very much, as long as you try your hardest in that, and you do push yourself or do what you know you can do, then that's all that matters. Whereas I think if you had a mindset of needing to be number one and never being able to get there, that would probably cause you to spiral downwards, I think. But yeah, I don't know how you said your parents rubbed off on you
Mhm.
in a positive way.
Yeah, it's a bit scary how similar our life
Yeah.
sounds here. But my it was a bit of a double whammy for my mum and dad because obviously they got the news about the cyst, which I'd never had a headache, never there was no indication, and then a few weeks later the muscle biopsy. Like you, I remember sitting in the corner of the room playing with those wooden square
Mm,
block things and not really being fully aware of what was going on. But I think my mum and dad have both always been really positive, and my dad, he was always the kind of person that if I fell over, he'd be like, right, come on, dust yourself off. You've got
yeah.
to come back stronger. Don't let it beat you, type thing. And my mum, her positivity has always been just give everything a go. And, sometimes I'd try groups as a kid, like whether it be cheerleading or gymnastics, and I couldn't do them. I'd go to the first one and it was quite clear that it wasn't for me. And I think as a child, that was quite disheartening. And you're like, well,
Mm,
why can I not do it? But my mum would always be there by my side and be like, come on, find your own way of doing it. You don't have to be the best at it. You don't have to be like everybody else. But if you enjoy it, just give it a go, type thing. And I
yeah.
think it it is. We don't always recognise how hard it is for them because, as you say, they're aware of it a lot more before we are. I mean, I don't think I fully understood the gravity of my condition until I was like 12, 13, and even then, I think I was quite naive and blinkered. But they've always had the hard facts in front of them, and they go home and they Google, and way back then it was worst case scenario, and I think there wasn't a lot in the media about stuff as there is now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know, I mean, my parents were given a brochure for wheelchairs on the same day that they got told,
Yeah.
this is, and basically start having a look because you're going to need one soon, sort of thing, with wheelchairs and prices. And, you can imagine, I've been very fortunate that my parents have been able to help me with those sort of physio appointments and help me with my health and nutrition and getting me some support that I might need outside of the NHS. But you
Hmm.
can imagine another massive challenge is just the cost of these sort of things,
Yeah.
and actually how your condition progressing or not progressing could also be largely down to your background and what
Mm.
you can and can't afford essentially. And it's another thing that I'm so fortunate my parents took that off my plate basically, and I'm forever grateful for them that if any sort of help I needed, whether it was physio or I'd hurt myself in like sports massage or whatever that was, I had the privilege to be able to get that. And again, that's something that they had on their plate that really, when you're growing up, you don't register, you don't think about, you get in a lot of scenarios, especially when it comes to health. So it's something that I've definitely, as I've grown up and started paying bills and started paying my rents and mortgages and these sort of things, you start to understand. It sounds crazy to say, but you really start to understand the limits of money and money in, money out and all of that, and really watching it. And so you then start to relate that to your parents, think, wow, the fact that I was fortunate enough that they were taking that on their plate and not passing it on to me, and not that being one less thing for me to have to worry about is huge. But again, it's something I think about now, is that your background and the situation that you're in could also have a massive impact on your health, which is awful to have to think that.
I agree, definitely. It sounds like you've got a really good support system behind you, definitely.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
as you say, that's something I have realised now that I've become aware of just the general cost of living, and you do look and think, gosh, how how do you do it? And it's heartbreaking to think that it is really a lottery of, where are you, where's your situation, to what type of healthcare you receive. And I think that's something that I'm quite passionate about. I mean, it's a long road, and I think slowly there's small steps in the right direction, but I would like to see, a society where people with muscular dystrophy and all health conditions, but if you need the help, you can just get the help. It's not
yeah.
I can't afford a wheelchair, I can't afford a mobility aid, I can't afford physio. If you need it, you should be able to get it.
Yeah, and a little plug to the charity Muscular Dystrophy
Yeah,
UK. So that's going to be your first point of call if you're listening to this and been diagnosed, or loved ones in that situation. That's without a doubt, if you're in the UK, that's your first point of call. I think if you're America, it's MDA, Muscular Dystrophy Association. But just look for your national charity for muscular dystrophy, because that's what they're there for, is to help with that. And that could be anything, navigating the process with, it could be parking, it can be employment, it could be financial support from your government, all of those things. So again, you need to really, although it's not always obvious, you need to find that support network, because the charity is there to help with these things.
absolutely. They're a godsend, them. Honestly,
Mm.
they are just incredible. I only found out about them a few years ago, and I'm kicking myself for not hearing about them sooner, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's been so I do a lot of fundraising.
Yeah.
So when I was diagnosed, I think after about a year, when maybe my parents had come to terms with everything, they thought, right, we need to do something. So they created a family fund called Team Jed, and we've raised to date, I think, nearly or around £250,000 now and it's specific to research into the condition, because I think my focus, where, as I say, I'm very fortunate to be mobile and fit and healthy, my focus is really trying to push treatments and cures and research. And yeah, recently, I say recently, November 2023, did a massive charity event in London, and we raised over £20,000. But it would be impossible without the charity, so they really help across all aspects of what you do, whether you're wanting to do a bake sale or Guinness World Record or London Marathon, something like that. Whatever you want to do, they're there to support and help. That's what the team is there for. If you're doing something for them, they're there with open arms, and smiles on their faces. So it's a great environment to be around.
Oh wow, that sounds amazing. That
Yeah.
actually brings up a little question of mine about research, but um in regards to a lot of what's coming through now, I mean, we've touched on it a little bit, but do you find yourself feeling a bit optimistic about the future, or do you still think we've got quite a long way to go? I know, quite a tricky question though.
Yeah, it's it's tough. I want to get your thoughts on it too. I think this is really dependent on the day that you're having and how positive or negative you're feeling that day. Because it's hard. When I look back, I know when I was diagnosed, the doctors, research essentially said, look, there should be a cure within about 5 years.
Mm,
And so, which is why my parents really spurred them on to start fundraising because they thought, look, let's just get this over the line as quickly as humanly possible, do everything that we can.
yeah.
5 years came and went, 10 years came and went, and we're now, what's 8 to 24, 25, with 16, 17 years down the line.
Gosh.
Um, and so when you look at it like that, no, it doesn't, I'm not filled with hope and optimism, realistically. And especially when you're sort of up against the clock when it's something that's progressing or worsening day by day, and you think, okay, well, where are we? Okay, I know there's actually been treatments, I believe, Translana, if that's the right, I think that's the right way for Duchenne.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that one before.
Yeah, so there in our lifetime there has been a treatment for a certain muscular dystrophy that's been created and passed, but you just see so many hurdles, and there needs to be enough people with it. Then it needs to be tested. Then the tests need to go successfully, which often they don't, and it goes back to trial phases and different iterations of the treatment or the cure. And then it needs to be picked up commercially by a massive pharmaceutical company. Now, when it's quite a rare condition, they don't want to fund it, they don't want to pick it up. So it doesn't fill you with hope. And to be very clear, this is no fault of the charity. They're constantly funding different programs and everything. But, you do see, you spend 5 years watching a program go through from its infancy through to clinical trial, and it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
you're back to the drawing board. So I'd like to think that there would be a treatment in our lifetime. A cure, I think we might be a long way off again, as we are probably with a lot of conditions. But the cynic in me says that it's just not commercially viable enough to
Yeah.
really push it. But then, you look at something like cancer research, one of the biggest, um, let's say, conditions, diseases in the world. And even that's still a long way off sort of a repeated cure at all stages of cancer. So it really makes you think, God, what hope the smaller ones have.
Do we have?
Yeah, so I don't know, what do you think? Am I taking maybe I'm being really cynical and taking a negative view on it?
I honestly agree that I think it depends on the type of day that I'm having.
Yeah,
I think there's some days where I'll hear little snippets about this trial and all, and I'll think, do you know what? Yeah, we're getting there. The day will come, and then there's other days where I'm like, actually, the logistics of it, there's so many hurdles, as you say. It's not just a case of finding something that works. That there's so many other aspects to it. So I think, I think we'll get to a day in our lifetime, hopefully, where there'll be a treatment of some kind.
yeah.
Hopefully, but a, a cure. Mm, I'm not optimistic on that one. Gotta say.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think also, again, me being real cynical. Maybe I've had a long day at work or something, but it's with these things you obviously want and need hope. And if it was hopeless, you wouldn't put the money and the time into fundraising, into researching, and into all of these programs. So there needs to be hope there, but I wouldn't let myself have enough hope that it affects how I deal with and manage my condition myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be at the point where I'm hopeful enough that I start easing up on my own fitness and health because I'm just waiting. And I start not trialing different supplements and different workout routines and everything because, you're so hopeful that there's going to be something. So in my mind, I almost try and unfortunately just think that there won't be a treatment or cure so that when that day does come, touch wood, it does. Yeah, it's a bonus, it's an addition to what you're doing. because I've been through the whole, I really clung on to that 5 years time sort of thing.
Yeah.
When as well, when you're starting to grow, maybe, 10 through to 13, you think you are counting down the months until sort of that 5 year deadline. And then they said 5 more years, and you think, okay, that's obviously gutting news, but you're literally counting down the years, and the deadline hits and nothing. And so I can't, I couldn't keep living life like that. That doesn't work for me. So I'll support all I can, but almost I'm doing it for the next generation, the next two, three generations, because I don't think that I can go through that process of waiting on the deadline.
I agree. I think that's a really amazing perspective to have on it, to be honest. And I think you're right. I think we can run the risk otherwise of just sitting here hoping, and if the day doesn't come, it's like, where are you left with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm quite aware of time, and I think you and me, we could talk for hours on this. So I'll
Yeah.
put like my main question.
Yeah,
Well, a
absolutely.
few questions really, but it was really, the first one was going to be about what misconceptions about muscular dystrophy do you encounter the most, and that you want to maybe tackle.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a good one. And again, everyone's experience is so different. So
Yeah.
I'm not, I don't know what the correct term is. I think visibly disabled, or I'm, I'm trying to keep up with it all. I think I'm able-bodied presenting is maybe a way to put it in certain communities. Basically, I don't look disabled.
Yeah.
That's the simple way to put it. So I've got a very different experience of, what people misconceive or what they assume. And something I've spoken about a lot more recently is that the assumption is that I'm fine.
Mhm.
So when I tell people that I'm dealing with muscular dystrophy, or I've got a muscle wasting condition, it almost goes in one ear and out the next,
Mhm.
because they see that they hear that you've got it, and then from what they see, they're like, oh great, but he's doing fine. It's not actually affecting him. So you get some people in when I'm in the gym, and they will just say, oh, why are you not lifting heavy weights, or why are you doing this? Why are you doing? Oh, come on now, come on. And you say, oh, I've got a condition. So this is heavy for me. And they're like, oh yeah, but come on, let's add a little bit more weight on. Come on, you got to push yourself in the gym. And it's sort of and it's coming from, I think, the nice place, and trying to connect, but they don't get that there's I can do this and I can't do this. Some people see it as oh, just push yourself a little bit more. Like, okay, yeah, you've got a condition, but surely just add a little bit more on. And it's not like that. There's, especially with weights, 1 kilo difference is the difference between being able to do something and not doing something. It's that simple. So I think that's one of the main things, is that the misconception is that, for me, is that I'm fine, and
Mhm.
sometimes I'm not. And then other times I think, you know, again, something I've spoken about recently, where people know you have a condition, and they want to help and everything, but they also just assume that maybe you need everything done for you, or that you need this lifting, or that you can't do anything. So it's
Yeah.
a real fine middle ground, and I completely understand why people get it wrong all the time when they're dealing with someone like myself. Because
Mhm.
on one hand, some people assume I'm fine, I can do whatever because I look fine. And on the other hand, people are going, oh, cry, well, you've got that, and it's progressing, and sort of, well, and they just assume that you can't do anything at all. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think, but day to day, it's the assumption that I'm fine that is the misconception, because I
Yeah.
will go up the stairs, and you have complete strangers just saying, oh, Christ, you're tired, or if you hurt yourself or something, like, often, like, oh, have you had a bit much to drink there? Like, if you're coming up the stairs at a bar toilet or something, as we said earlier, all the stairs around London, people assume you're drunk, or you're smashed, or you can't, you've hurt yourself or something. And it's like, really, that's not adding anything to my life, you saying that. And actually, it's not adding anything to your life, you asking that. So that's the thing, I think, is just people jumping to the assumption that you're okay because of how you look. Yeah, I guess. I don't know what your experience has been.
Yeah. So Gosh, mine's been a bit of a journey. Um,
Yeah.
I think when I was younger and I was a toe walker, I had similar encounters to you in that a lot of people used to ask me if I was practicing for ballet, like just random people,
Wow.
and I'd be like, no, and then they'd be like, well, what? And I think it was hard for people to understand the concept of a toe walker. So, yeah, and like you, I mean, it would always replay on my mind for like a few weeks, but it just wasn't really adding anything to my life, and I'd be like, what's the need to
Yeah.
comment? Um, Now I'd say it's a bit of a spectrum. When I'm sat down and like in a restaurant or out and about, it's not fully visible that I'm disabled, but when I get up and you see me move about, it's pretty visible. Um, I'd say misconceptions. It's like people will either assume that you can't do anything, you don't go out, you stay at home, you have no life, you're very just stuck, can't do anything, life's very dull. And that does frustrate me a lot. Like people used to get surprised that I've ever been clubbing. That apparently that's like a big wow moment that disabled people go clubbing.
Oh my gosh. I've
Uh,
done far too much of that in my university days.
I know.
I did more clubbing for all the able-bodied people combined.
And that used to blow people's minds. And I think there just is sometimes that stereotype that disabled people live a very dull life. And, it's just, it's not really the case. I mean, I've got a job, I went to uni, very similar to yourself, and I don't think my disability has ever made me not do anything. I've just sometimes had to find my own way of doing it or needed a bit more support in doing it. But it's not taken anything away from my life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, and there are some things now that being older, you know what, I'm never gonna go out now in my life. And there are some things you can accept that you're not gonna do, you're probably not gonna be able to do, and that's okay.
That's okay.
I think when you're going through that teen phase where you do just want to fit in, be like everyone else, when you can't do something, that does have obviously an impact on you. But now I'm okay not being able to go, yeah, say rock climbing
Yeah.
or be able to go run 100 meters at certain events and stuff. I'm okay with that. I'll come to peace with those things because you know what, most people don't anyway.
No,
Most people, it's only a very select few people that become good at physical activities. Everyone else just falls back in line with the other stuff,
just like,
essentially.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely. So I'll round it off with my final little question. But is there anything you would like the listeners of this podcast to know about muscular dystrophy or life with muscular dystrophy?
It's a great question. It's a very good question. A heavy one to end on. I need to think about that. I think the the main thing would be just to understand that it's completely different.
Mm,
Everyone has it very differently. Everyone's on their very own journey, some better than others. But if people firstly understand what the condition roughly is, so it's muscle wasting or progressively weakening disease, that's a starter. It's not many people have heard of it. But really, it's just the ability, and I don't think it's specific to muscular dystrophy, but the ability to just ask people about their experience and ask them what they do need help with, what they don't need help with, what they're comfortable sharing or not. It's just a life skill that I think we've lost as a
yeah,
generation globally. I think it's just the ability to communicate with someone without being rude, be genuine, inquisitive, ask questions, pick up on cues when somebody doesn't want to talk about it. It's
yeah,
really just, speak to each person individually and understand them as an equal rather than as someone less than.
I agree. Honestly, I don't think I could have put that any better myself. I think, like you, it's just sometimes I think approaching things with a bit more compassion, and if it's natural to be intrigued and have questions, but you know, we don't always want to answer them, and that's fine. We're not obligated to explain our disability to every stranger that we pass, and I think muscular dystrophy, it is so unique and broad to everybody, and it does impact everybody so differently, and it's hard. There's hard days. It's crap some days. I'm not gonna deny that. I've had my fair share of self-pitying days, but I think, at least I can say from my perspective, I'd like to try and show that there is a lot of good, and life really is what you make it. It if you want to do something, you know, find a way of still scratching that itch, and not letting that condition just kind of rule your life in a way, if that makes sense. I don't know if I've put that in the
Yeah.
right type of words, but
No,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I think something that's come up just from you speaking there, and I think similar, is that there's a massive misconception that people with disabilities, just them being around and being positive is enough.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, it's so great that they're just, they're positive, they keep going every day. And I think the huge misconception is that you can't be good at other things.
Yeah.
Just because you've got a disability or you've got muscular dystrophy, obviously you're not probably going to be the best athlete in the world, although in your own category within,
Yeah.
and obviously looking at Paralympics you can be, but in general, you're not going to be the best athlete in the world.
No.
However, that doesn't stop you from being the best singer or the best accountant or the best consultant. Just find what you love and do it, or find, you don't even need to love it that much. Just be really good at it. There's nothing stopping you. And again, not everyone with a disability needs to be a public speaker
No.
or an advocate. In the same way that, we're here talking about it, a
Mm.
lot of people just get on, want to do their work, be the best at what they do, and that's fine. The misconception is that not everyone wants to be an advocate and wants to speak openly and stuff. They want to get on with their life, make as much money as they can, go on holidays, all of that sort of thing, as does everyone else.
Oh, I love that. I don't think I could have rounded that off any better myself, Jed. That was perfect. Oh my gosh. Well,
Brilliant.
honestly, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I've loved our chat. I really have. I feel like I've
Excellent.
learned so much from you, and also related to you in a way that I don't think I've related to other people before. So
Yeah.
thank you for your time. I do really appreciate it.
No, not a problem. Thank you very much for having me on. It's fantastic. I love these opportunities to sort of speak about it and speak to other people. And as you said, we've got a lot of similarities as well, growing up and where we are now.
Amazing. Well, we'll have to keep in touch and
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
see what else we can do and keep up with
Brilliant.
Muscular Dystrophy UK and stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely,
Well,
absolutely. But
enjoy the rest of your evening, Jen.